Hello, I'm Mark Childhouse, and because things on the internet seem to lose their date reference, today is Monday, February 27, 2023. This might pop up on YouTube a day or two after that, give me some production time, so to speak. Several years ago, I purchased the Prusa i3 Mark III S 3D printer, downloaded the free software, which you don't need to have the printer to download the software and use it, and then supply somebody else with your files. One of the things that came up, and I'm not a pro at this, I've printed hundreds of projects, and some of them multiple times. Looking over at my menagerie, we have Easter coming up, and I printed 15 Easter bunnies, all the same file 15 times. Some other projects along the way, coins for Disneyland. I think I printed more than 250 of the same coin. One of the things that I was asked was, what do you do when it detaches, when your print detaches from the sheet and you lose it? Well, actually you don't. If you get a little bit creative using Prusa Slicer, you can recover. In some cases, maybe most cases, you can recover. I've recovered several of my prints that have detached along the way. If you're using PLA filament, CA glue works really well with it, holds it together really well. And I'm going to show you how to recover from a detached print. And a number of people use several things to keep projects to the sheet. Use magnets once you start to get a little buildup so you don't have interference, things like that. Highly recommend you clean your sheet before each print with alcohol. I don't always do that. If I've been running for several hours and the sheet's already hot, whatever else, I just run. So what do you do when your print detaches from the sheet? And with this video I'm going to have to force it, but I'll show you how it works. And I'll show you how the Prusa Slicer allows you to recover from it, which is like really cool. And you do not need to purchase a printer to download the Prusa Slicer software. You can download that, install that on your computer, and work with it, and then take your files off to somebody else's printer, or send them off, whatever you want to do with them. So let's move on. So this is, I forced it to, I just stopped, used the command menus to stop the print, but theoretically this is the whistle that we have a detached print at. In the process of printing, we want to save it, we want to recover it as best we can, and that's possible. And in a real situation, you may have a glob of filament in here, not a big deal. A nail file works really well, a very fine wood file works really well to clean it up. What we're going to do is take a digital caliper, set it to millimeters, make sure it's zeroed, and then measure the thickness, 1.75 millimeters. Now that we are going to take over to Prusa Slicer, and 7.6 millimeters. That's the value we're going to take. Working with millimeters is just so much easier. I love working in inches, but working with millimeters mathematically is so much easier. In Prusa Slicer, on the right hand side in the borders, it says, do you want to be in inches? Remove the check, we take it to millimeters. And millimeters work so much better for this. We get the option to cut this, and what we're going to do is we are going to cut it at 7.6, I think it was, and we're going to keep only the upper portion. Boom. Now that's only the second half of the whistle, and if you remember, this is going to require a filament change as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to export this to, and it says we have 18 minutes. We're going to export this to the SD card, And we need to rename it just a little. Oh, we don't need to rename it because it has that 18-minute thing, but I'm going to put in part 2 dash and then hit enter, and now it's saved. Now we take it over and we run it on the Prusa printer. At the moment we are setting up the part 2 of the detached whistle print, which we forced to detach by stopping the print, and it's now calibrating. I'm switching to red so that when I do glue these back together we can see how they come up. And now it's off and running, and we have 15 minutes to a filament change according to that, 17 minutes remaining. So we're going to have another filament change in here. We'll see how it goes. Coming up on another filament change, and I'm going to photo it, add it to the video just to do it. Remember that almost all of it's going to be respond to it just by pushing the button. One of the things that I noticed was when I cut it, it did not change where the filament switch was. So the filament switch from where we change filaments during the print is higher than expected. As I said, when I do this normally, I cut the filament at a 45 as soon as I pull it out so I don't forget it. Use the stanchion holes. Did it extrude properly? Yes. Insert and push the button. Insert. Grab my long nose pliers. I see blue filament coming out. Yes, it did. I can grab it, maybe grab it and pull it away. And you want to pull it away, you want to get rid of it because sometimes it'll drag it into your print and kind of mess up. So now it has 2 minutes remaining to finish this part 2 of the whistle, where we forced it to a 2-part as if you had detached the print, if the print had detached and you wanted to recover it. So kind of timely. It actually did detach. I'm not going to try and recover it because it is enclosed. It's solid both sides, so it will work. It'll do for what we want. What some people have done when they're printing parts like this, and one of the settings you can do in Prusa Slicer is brim, and this one didn't have it. That increases the print contact area. What I was talking about earlier is sometimes when you get them to detach, you get these globs, and you can see the glob here on this guy here. I'll move him a little, see if we can get a different angle on him. What I found is a good fingernail file or a very fine woodworking file frequently will remove that. Not totally happy with how this came out, but it serves our purpose. What we'll do is we'll put these 2 parts together and we'll make one whistle, and we'll call the project complete, even though it is a partial failure. Okay, I'll show it to you as we glue it together. Okay, part 17 of this project, detached piece, is to glue these 2 guys together, and I'm using CA glue, medium set. I wish I had thick. I don't want to glue myself to this thing. If there's little hairs in here like this one does, get rid of them. You can file these surfaces with a fine wood file, fingernail file, whatever. I am This stuff annoys the eyes. There we go. I need to learn to buy smaller tubes of this because I waste more of it than I ever want to. Okay, thin bead on all of it. Put the two sides together, match them up as best you can. Get your fingers away so you don't glue yourself. And then give it time to set up. I didn't use the accelerator. You can. I'll accelerate it. If you do use the accelerator like I just did, not sure why I did, this stuff sets up in about 20-30 seconds from my experience. And if you don't use the accelerator, and my gap is filling up. So at this point, the whistle's back together. Believe me, I'm not going to test blow this one for a couple hours, just because I don't want to go to the emergency room with a whistle stuck to my lips. But if a print does detach while printing, and it's got a fair amount of value, time invested in it already, as I said, you can correct it. High probability you can correct it. Take a smooth file, file off the surface to make it smooth if you have to. There might be a nub of filament stuck to it. PLA is really resilient filament. It works really well. Then measure it. My preference is in millimeters. It just works out easier. Use the Prusa Slicer to slice it. Keep only the upper half. Then you might want to check and make sure that brim is set. That'll increase its footprint. When I went to redo this, it detached once or twice, and I had to restart it again. You may want to check brim on the Prusa Slicer to increase its footprint, to keep it in place, and then you're off and running. And as we saw, even though on the start of this part 2 of the print we got a good footing to it, when we changed back to blue to finish off the press whistle, it detached on us, but it was already sealed, so I just took it as it was. Sorry, but Joseph Prusa, your initials aren't on this whistle. So recovering from a detached print is possible and works pretty well. CA glue works really well.